Exploitation starts from the word go here in Italy. Kids equal business in migrant country, with reception centres paid around €75 a day for every child they house. Overwhelmed by the huge number of arrivals, local authorities have allowed private centres to open, with little control over what happens in them. Our team went to Giada Centre in Sicily after we heard shocking stories of neglect. Italian MEP Laura Ferrara, a specialist in migrant issues, came with us. But the coordinator there angrily denied us access. We were only able to film the entrance hall. Italian police then escorted a group of parliamentarians here as part of a wider investigation. This is what they told us about the children's living conditions. Giada Centre is structurally unsound and unhygienic, not even fit for a rubbish dump. We found unusable toilets, broken chairs and windows, and exposed electricity cables. As a result of our investigations, this centre has now been closed. But there are reports of malpractice in state-run centres too, including links to the Italian mafia. Feeling uncertain and unprotected, thousands of children run away from reception centres. With no one stepping in or taking responsibility for them, they're left to fend for themselves, doing what it takes to survive. Rome's Termini station has become a hub for Middle Eastern boys with nowhere else to go. Some as young as 11, these are vulnerable youngsters, exposed to the worst of humanity. Back in the UK, young teenagers have their freedoms restricted by parents worried for their safety. So just think for a moment about the unaccompanied minors from Africa and the Middle East who wash up here on the streets of Italy, many of them with no money, no ID papers, and some with huge debts to pay to dangerous people traffickers. It lands some in all sorts of trouble as they're clearly exposed to exploitation. 14-year-old Khaled is a drug dealer at the station. We've kept track of the goings-on here over a number of months. We've seen the faces change as some boys are arrested and others move on to Northern Europe. But the stories they tell us are depressingly similar.
I started selling drugs because I didn't have money to eat. I did it to avoid doing what other boys are doing here, having sex with Italian men. I've seen it with my own eyes. These boys, Egyptian, Tunisian and Moroccan, they ask men for €30, even for 50, but not me. I never did it.
Most of the youngsters we meet here are Muslim, from conservative families. None admits to prostituting themselves for cash. They all point the finger at others. But Khaled seems very familiar with how it all works and keen to show us.
The men offer us something to eat, maybe a cigarette. They try to encourage us by showing us bits of money, and then they ask for sex. They look for boys, under 18s, over 18s, whatever. It's a market.
Like Khaled, Hamid arrived in Italy owing money to people smugglers. He tells me he used to sell drugs to repay his debts, but now, like others we've met here, he works in a local market for €10 a day.
Non volete una vita migliore?
Didn't you imagine a better life for yourself? I asked him.
We came here thinking we would go to school, have somewhere safe to sleep, find a job. But it's not like that. Some of us work in the markets. Some sell drugs, others sell themselves. Once they have done it 2-3 times, they don't care anymore. We have to eat. If I'd known this, I never would have come here.
For many of the child migrants, their escape route to Europe must end up feeling like a road to nowhere. We're on a 15-kilometre stretch in Abruzzo in central Italy, well known for prostitution. Now, the problem of Nigerian women being trafficked here and used as sex slaves is age-old. But with the arrival of the boats across the Mediterranean to Italy, the number of Nigerian prostitutes here, including very young teenage girls, has shot up.
Minors are worth more. They're in higher demand than prostitutes over 18. Their traffickers tell them they'll be working as hairdressers, but then force them to work as prostitutes and pay the traffickers 50,000 to 60,000 euros just for bringing them to Europe.
This is debt bondage of girls as young as 13. The going rate for sex here is 15 euros, so paying back 50 to 60,000 will take years. And the traffickers threaten the girls' families if payment is slow.
Did you know when you came from Nigeria you would do this, or did you want to do something else?
I don't know. No, they tell me they come, there's work. I was happy, so I come, there's no work.
Later at night on the street, some of the girls look painfully young, even under their heavy makeup. We found Annie selling herself by a bag of rubbish. She told us she'd only recently arrived in Italy by boat, and she seemed nervous. Time is money, though the girls say they sometimes have sex for a bag of food. This misery in Italy is mirrored 1,000-fold in dark corners and alleyways across the continent, as more and more unaccompanied youngsters make their way here. While Europe's leaders squabble about how to deal with the recent influx of migrants and refugees, children are being abandoned to a terrible fate on our doorstep. Katya Adler, BBC News, Rome.